Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Stop Yelling, Start Thinking podcast on the Freedomist platform. Tonight, I'm joined by my co-hosts Isaiah Smith and Alexander Sizemore, and we're very happy to have on Florida City Councilman Ebo Entsuah. Thank you so much for coming on and joining us.
Thank you guys so much for having me, and I'm excited to be here. Really am pumped up.
So just to start off, you are obviously a young person in local government. You've been involved in government before. What was your journey from being a college student and an athlete to where you are now, and what motivated you to get there?
Yeah, so I mean, just if we want to first start it off again, just want to say thank you again. But for me, honestly, it really started with having a mentor and having somebody who actually was able to show me the path of where I kind of wanted to go, or at least giving me an idea. After I graduated from Florida State University, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to go to law school. I thought I wanted to get my master's. I really had no really true instance of how I wanted to kind of change my life or how I wanted to change the lives of others. I was talking to a couple mentors and they kind of were like, well, have you ever thought about public service or public policy? You know, the number one way to change your community is actually to be in it and actually take part in it. So I decided, you know what, it's not really what my major was in, but I think it's something that I would love to kind of take a look at. So on a whim, applied for a fellowship, a public policy fellowship with a lobbying firm, got the fellowship, moved up to Washington, D.C. without knowing anybody, and immediately just jumped into it. And I found that I loved it. I loved, learning about policy. I loved learning about, all the different research and all the different policy areas that kind of affected, just your everyday people. It kind of just flew from there. I went from that policy firm to Capitol Hill, and then from there back home to work at the local level. So it really was a blur, but I know I wouldn't have been anywhere close to where I was today without my mentors and the people who were currently advising me.
So you really kind of jumped in the deep end with it all then. So good thing for those people alongside you that were, helping you learn the ropes a little bit.
Oh yeah, man! I tell you what, I've seen some people try it and crash and burn miserably, but honestly,
I can imagine.
I was blessed, and I was extremely fortunate to have those great mentors and people who are in great places now.
Yeah. Now, were there any other experiences or kind of stepping stone moments that you feel like helped better prepare you for your kind of foray into politics?
Yeah. So honestly, I mean, really everything I did, even though a lot of the stuff that I did wasn't really centered around politics before I got into it, a lot of the things that I did do really showed me how to better my skills. Like Magdalene said, I was an athlete in high school and in college, so allowing me to kind of see all the different points of view and meet people from different points of lives or different walks of lives really allowed me to kind of work on my conflict resolution skills. And then also my parents are, aside from their day jobs, they're also missionaries who do work in a foreign country. So I was able to kind of see the public service aspect works with it. So I think just having those two experiences show me how perseverance works and how people really work at a micro level. Definitely, I'd say definitely positively impacted my journey to where I am now.
So with you playing sports through school and that, was that something that you had wanted to take further, and what made you kind of shift gears then from sports to where you are now?
Yeah, you don't see a lot of former athletes getting into politics. I'll tell you what.
No.
So honestly, I had always felt like I was pretty competitive. I'm about 5'11", which I think is around 175 centimeters or something along that lines if I'm going to the metric system. So in terms of height and weight, I wasn't the tallest, I wasn't the biggest, I wasn't the fastest, but I always felt that I was able to persevere and have a lot of heart. So for me, it always was about people telling me what I can and can't do. And just with young people in general, we see that a lot more often, especially these days in politics, not just at the local level, but at the state, county, and federal level. We have a lot of people who are always telling people to wait their turn. I tell you what, even when I got to Capitol Hill and even when I decided to run for office, there were so many people who were like, now is not the time, we like what you're talking about, but we would like to have something else happen down the line before you come in. And eventually I was like, you know what? No, I don't want to do that. I kind of want to just have my own path and pave my own way to get to where I want to be. So, I guess hearing people say no definitely fueled my fire and wanted me to kind of get to that next level. So I can definitely attribute sports to really aiding me on that front.
No, I can identify with that. People saying that you're not able to do something. Yeah, can really fuel the fight and get your juices going and go, you know what, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna prove you all wrong.
Exactly. And just another point to add to that, for me, it was also a little bit different as well. Being the son of immigrants from Ghana, West Africa, we really were used to, I don't know if we can get that. I don't know if you can do that. It's not something you're used to. But I was like, no, like I've seen my parents, struggle and benefit from their hard work and seeing their attitude, just fuel them for what they're doing. And if they can do it, I can do it, So that's definitely something that I want to impart on my kids. And even though, I've gotten my bachelor's from uni and I've gotten my my master's degree as well, part of me always looks to education and just wanting to build more and learn more. And there's always thoughts now like, oh, do I want to go get the next level, or do I want to just stop here? So that definitely is something that's fueled me as well. Having the tools to really excel in academics and in athletics, it's something that I think has definitely shaped me.
And do you think that in sort of that vein of looking for more young people to get involved in politics, is it that people don't look in those areas like sports or education? There seems to be this idea of one specific pipeline of people to get to local government. Should there be a bigger breadth of places that people look?
Yeah, no, there definitely should be, because when you think about it, honestly, a lot of times you find the hidden gems when you're not looking. You know what I mean? There are plenty of people who at first glance wouldn't really be people that you would think are viable candidates, or people who might not even be able to kind of, make an impact. But I've met so many people who are either, just very knowledgeable, very personable, people that might not know all the answers, but are willing to kind of get in front of people and learn more about it. So, honestly, a lot of times these days, we don't have enough people who are kind of well versed in other aspects, because we have, you understand it, you all understand it. We have plenty of people on social media who are political gurus and, great with the census numbers and everything. And everybody always thinks those people might be good for their local or county government. But at the end of the day, you really want people who are actually in their community doing things and are actually prevalent. And that's what I really pride myself in, especially here in Clermont.
Yeah, definitely.
So did you carry on?
No, go ahead.
So did you grow up all your life in Florida, or were you anywhere else before Florida?
So I actually was born in Toronto.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you'd been around the States a little bit or anything. So.
Yeah. So like I said before, my mother and father both grew up in Ghana. Eventually immigrated to Canada, where my mom was doing her residency and my dad was also getting his master's. So about a little time after, we moved to the States and we settled in Texas, or not Texas, but Oklahoma actually for a bit. Oklahoma and then Michigan, and then went back to Canada. And then eventually they finally got long-standing jobs and decided that they wanted to move to Central Florida. And I believe this was around 2001. So been in Florida ever since, aside from my time in DC. So Florida's home, home of the Sunshine State, best state in the union, the great state of Florida. So have plenty of good things to say about my state.
and you guys got Tom Brady now as well, so
that's also true. No, that's also true. Tampa Bay has been loving Tom Brady and Gronk.
Well, I wanted to ask you a handful of questions, kind of about your perspective on how we can get more people, not necessarily only young people, just more people into the local governments, and also kind of what your philosophy about local government and what that involvement looks like, and perhaps some of the differences that we see in the different qualities necessitated in local government that are frequently absent on a federal level, excuse me.
Yeah, no. So, we obviously always hear all politics is local. And it is definitely a selling point that people try to say over and over and over again. But honestly, it's extremely true. If you're walking down the street and you see Sally Mae, who's out there mowing her lawn, she's saying that she can't find any way to help, find a job or something along those lines. You have to look to your city council and kind of be like, okay, what are they doing to kind of help economic development within my city? Or, if we're looking at local roads or we're looking at county roads, you see the road statuses are deteriorating. That's something that you need to look at to your local and state government or local and county government as well. So honestly, some of the things that we're looking to do, especially on my front, is kind of hold a candidate 101 workshop. These are things that we've seen in other states and even at the congressional level to kind of just instruct and let your constituents know, hey, there's so many people who have really thought about running for office, but are either too timid or, feel like it's not for them. And honestly, the more contrasting views we have, I always feel like it's better. When you look at our council right now, we've got 5 different people from different walks of lives. We have people who are retired, we have people who are working, like myself, and who are just starting out, and then you have people who are in the middle of life. So it really is important that you have all of the different points of view, and people from different walks of life in order to have that way you're avoiding just a straight singular point of thinking. So people definitely should be getting out more. And people, a lot of times people are just scared, so that's what we're really trying to do, is just work on the education front. And I think this kind of just goes back to my whole spiel about how education is so important and how, you always can take every day to learn something new. I've been on council for about a year now, and I'm still learning things to this day. So, it really is something that I take pride in, and it's something that I would love to have my constituents learn more about, because even in Clermont, we have term limits. So I technically can only serve for 6 years, and after that, that's it. In the past, we had people who were essentially placeholders for 10, 15 years, and you always found that nothing really got done. So we really are trying to boost the thought of getting new blood in and kind of get the body circulating a little bit more.
Yeah. Now, you also mentioned having like a diversity of thought and people from all sorts of different walks of life. Now, do you notice that, I think because Florida is kind of a little bit of a political melting pot as far as affiliations go. And have you found that there is significant benefit to having a lot of bipartisan thought and engagement?
Yeah, no, definitely. So just a little background. Lake County is a county that has been growing exponentially in the last couple of years. We have almost 1,000 people who move to our county every day. The majority of the county is bright red, but Clermont has actually gotten to be a little bit purple in the past couple of years. So for me, a registered Republican, a conservative, somebody, if I was to actually run in Clermont, I have to make sure that I'm not just talking to Republicans or conservatives. I have to actually talk to everybody in order to get as many votes as possible. And it also helps that, or it's a fact that Clermont's local politics are all nonpartisan. So you really do have to be able to talk to the other side and be able to get as many votes and increase voter turnout if you want to make any type of impact on the political level. So I think it definitely has helped me, mainly because I've just been able to talk to so many different people, people who look like me, people who don't look like me, people who are transplants from up north, people who have lived in the southern states all their life. So it definitely has helped me to kind of gain new perspectives. And I try to use it as much as possible and be as objective as possible whenever I'm making legislative decisions.
And have you seen an increase in reliance on local government right now, obviously because of the pandemic, and there's been so much disruption, I think, in governing in a lot of people's minds? Have people from multiple types of backgrounds become more reliant on local government to answer even just their questions, if not do drastic changes for their lives?
100%. My email, my inbox, my phone is always going off the hook with constituents just asking questions, just because there are things that are being brought up now, especially with the talk about mask mandates and vaccines and whatnot. Nobody really knows, everybody kind of talks about it at the congressional level, but to be honest, a lot of those laws and ordinances are mandated by your local city council or your school board.
Right.
So, we're seeing the numbers of people who are interested at the local and school board level increase exponentially. We usually have a pretty fluid comment period for the public comment period. And it, we're seeing now that there's so many people who have a voice that need to be heard. And it's not always the best voice, but there's always people who, need to be heard, and all their voices are need to be respected and listened to.
Yeah.
Saying
Sorry, go ahead, Zach.
Something that you mentioned before was that now you've got a term of you can only be on the council for 6 years, and stops people just sitting on there and essentially taking up a seat, being a placeholder, and nothing really happening in that. So basically, you've got a bit of a ticking a clock on your time in the council there of a 6-year period. You say you've been there for a year, so what are you doing to make sure that you get good people come through next to replace you?
Yeah. So one of the things I think it's kind of a tough conundrum to have is when you come in, a lot of times, and even when I heard this from people who were in before, I was always like, no, that's not true. Like, I'm gonna get in, I'm gonna make stuff happen, and it's gonna be great. I found that my last year has been nothing but learning and being told what I can't do. So definitely wanting to be able to kind of learn and see, hey, how can I know the ropes? How can I see how I can kind of work in the system and, not necessarily listen to people who are like, oh, well, we haven't done this before. How are we going to do this? It has been a big key. So for me, when I look at the direction that I want our city to go to, and when I talk to the people that I can confide in and people who are just regular everyday people, I'm letting them know that, hey, if you really want to make a change in your community, this is a great way to do it. And I think that you would be a great candidate or somebody that I could see, either taking on this legacy and making it your own, or creating a new legacy that would benefit our constituents. You have a clock and that clock just ticks every day. So it definitely, it's a little daunting at the beginning, but now I've kind of found that I really need to just, put my head down and kind of just walk the road that I need to, and make sure that good legislation and good ordinances are being placed out for our residents.
So what you're saying is, like, you're focusing on doing your role, but then also, like, trying to inspire some other people to step into those roles, to be there and support of you, to be the next wave of politicians, and that to carry that dream of where your city needs to be heading and stuff.
Yep, exactly. And I mean, there are a number of people who I found that they really do want to get involved, but at first they were a little bit more timid about it. But once they saw that I got elected, being, the youngest city councilman in Clermont's history, they're like, okay, this is something that I actually can do,
Right.
Yeah, I've seen you do it. I've seen you put the work in, I've been on the ground and I've had boots on the ground with you. You've inspired me to kind of take that next step and do the same. So, I take great pride in that. And a lot of people that I've confided in have definitely thought about running in the future. And now it's about kind of really just, I wouldn't say grooming per se, but making sure that they're well equipped for if they are going to run and campaign, or if they are to get elected and sworn in.
Yeah, I really like that whole philosophy and stuff like that, and I like that whole idea of people having an actual term where they can't be involved anymore and stuff, because it stops people. We look at somebody like Biden or that, who's been in and around politics all his life, and he's been on this side of an issue and then on that side of an issue and everything. When you go back and you don't really know what he stands for or anything, it's just the flavor of the day, and he's been there for forever and a day. And people like that are not looking to kind of train up the next generation of people or anything like that to come in and actually make a difference or anything, because all they really care about is keeping their own backside in a comfy seat. So it's good to hear that stuff like that is going on, and that you've got a vision of saying that you're trying to accomplish. You've got a time frame around what you can do, because you're only there for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And, what happens after that and where you go, and that you might be able to do something on a bigger scale. Who knows? But making sure that you're focused on what you've got to get done, and bringing up the next lot of people to do that as well is good to see.
Yeah, no, it really is important. It really is. We've had so many people who have thought about running and wanted to put their hat in, but just either having misinformation, or just being scared, or not even wanting to kind of step out there, not having the confidence to, has prevented them from doing that. And I guess just the biggest point I would take with that is making sure you have a very good support system. Like I said before, I have a number of people that I'm able to confide in, who are being objective with me and letting me know, hey, I don't know if that's a great idea. I don't know if you should do that. Having somebody to keep you well grounded is key, because I've seen a lot of my former colleagues and coworkers, and people that I used to work with who are in those elected positions, take stances or do things that you normally wouldn't see them do. And in the back of your head, you're kind of like, okay, I see what you're doing, and I see how you're kind of playing the field, but in the past, I probably wouldn't have seen you do that. And you told me yourself that you probably wouldn't do that. So it definitely is a balancing game and a balancing act to kind of figure out where you want to get to and how you want to kind of impact people.
Yeah. What do you think was one of your biggest learning curves, coming into local government and stuff like that? Was, you said obviously that you wanted to do a whole lot of things, then you realized that, it's going to take a bit more in that. But would have that been your biggest learning curve, or was there something else that really starkly stood out for you?
I'd say that's definitely one of them. Obviously, as an elected official, your status definitely changes. There were things that I was a lot more comfortable doing before, now that I can't. So like my support system would be like, including my fiance, would be like, I don't know if you should be saying that online, or wearing that out to the grocery store, because somebody is going to see you, or something along those lines. So I mean, that definitely there definitely was an adjustment to it. And people like to let me know, especially when you're new, that, hey, you're new, like, hold your horses, like, slow up a little bit. I see you speed racer, but let's dial it back a little bit. So that definitely was the biggest adjustment for me. When I came in, I really came in guns blazing, trying to do XYZ. And just because of the time of where we were at in terms of the council, we kind of had to hold off on a lot of things that we wanted to do, and I wanted to do. So right now, it's about biding our time and trying to make sure that once we have a little bit more free time, we can work on some of these programs and initiatives in order to help our residents.
So you talked a little bit about roading and different things like that the local government is doing, and the work they're doing in that sort of area and that. But could you elaborate a little bit more on kind of the role and the power of the local government on sort of the day-to-day level for people? Because we can kind of like get a bit enamored, I think, as it happens the same here in New Zealand, where you get a bit more focused on the whole federal side of things. The big dogs that are running things. The popularity contest between two names running for president and how they're going to affect your day-to-day life. But it's the local government in actuality that has a lot of effect day to day on how we actually live our lives. So if you could elaborate a little bit more on that kind of role of local government in every day-to-day life, that'll be cool.
Yeah, so I mean, with local government, you really have your ear closest to the ground in terms of legislation and ordinances. You set the tax and millage rate for your residents, and they can be very upset when you raise that millage rate and very happy when you lower it. So, we're collecting taxes. We have the ability to fine and make sure that our citizens are doing things that are within our code. We can set noise ordinances. We obviously fund our police and fire and make sure that they're running smoothly, and making sure that all of our public parks are well funded as well. And you've seen this in other cities and other counties as well. They also have economic development programs that allow them to kind of help incubate small businesses and help them grow and help them, if somebody is interested in learning a little bit more about, the way things work in their city and they want to be a part of it, you can have advisory boards that are placed out, like a historic preservation committee or a planning and zoning board. These are the type of boards that are instituted by your city government, in order to get people, one, involved, and two, actually have things done that aren't just done by the city employees. So, there's a lot of planning that goes into it. Before I was elected to the city council, I was actually on the Planning and Zoning Commission as well. And it essentially was a recommendation board that allowed the city council to have another set of eyes on some of the different applications that were coming in. So, looking at some of the zoning codes and some of the planning initiatives that are put forward, definitely allows you to kind of plan and make sure your city is growing in a smart way and not just accepting any type of growth that's coming. Because we have had cities in the past that have kind of just said yes to everything.
Right.
Now they are essentially dying off and people are moving because one, they can't live there, or two, they can't sustain their lifestyle there. So it's really important that you're making sure that your cities are growing smart, very intelligently, and making sure that the planning is all put in place, for the future generations.
Yeah, and in that vein, I was curious because we have seen quite a few cities, I think, in recent years take on too much and sort of collapse from that. Is there a lot of involvement from the federal or the state government, the state governing government, like the governor's mansion, those areas, in working with local government to make sure residents are happy? Because a lot of the discontentment we see in politics often comes from miscommunication or a lack of communication between the two levels within the state, not even the federal government. So is there a lot of local and federal government working together in Florida that you can see?
So it definitely matters for each municipality. And intergovernmental, relations are probably one of the most important things, just from an organizational standpoint. In the past, we really didn't have a good relationship with our school board, with our county commission, or with our state representatives. And now we're kind of working on that, because there are plenty of times where your city council or your municipal government are going to need grants, are going to need help with applications at the federal level, and your state representatives and state senators are going to be the ones to kind of help you push it forward and get those appropriations to make sure that the projects that you really want funded are going to be able to be funded. And it really is key. Like you said, there are so many different misconceptions and just issues that happen with miscommunication between the different levels, and it shows. Luckily, we have a governor who's actually pretty good with communication in terms of on the municipal level. And if at any time a councilman or a city manager or city administrator needs to reach out to a state agency, they've done well enough, and they have liaisons who are set up in order to kind of make sure that communication or that communicative line is open.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Although I could actually ask one follow-up to that. We know that a lot of states right now are dealing with sort of unease in school boards and unease in really local groups that previously were quite docile are getting quite motivated. Do you envision that there will be another wave of people running for local government because of this uneasement or because of this sort of now focus on local government? Do you see that coming?
I hope so. I know that's not as concrete as an answer, but I hope so.
I'll take it.
Mainly because when you look at the political landscape today, you do see a lot of activists and a lot of people who are kind of, whether it's your social media warriors, whether it's your people who are doing those stand-ins and demonstrations, there are people who seem to be at least interested in making a difference. But we know that the real difference that's being made is when you're actually getting out there and doing the work. And that's what we've seen, that's what we've failed to see various amounts of times with other organizations. They've come out and essentially been all talk and no actual real tangible work. So, I'm really hoping that, I feel as though, we hear about compassion fatigue, but I'm really hoping that, with the new social justice fatigue, people will actually want to do something and take another route in order to kind of change their community and make those changes, whether good or bad, that they want to see happen around them.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Matthew, do you have a follow-up?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, I wanted to just sort of, in closing, maybe ask you what your advice would be for young people wanting to get into local government. Because I've actually had on some other politicians in local government, and they talked about their individual journeys, but they were all very specific to themselves. There wasn't some general advice for how to do that. So what would your general advice be for that?
Be as open and as transparent as possible. I found that when I came to and approached people and I let them know straight up, hey, I'm interested in getting involved. I'm interested in actually talking to people and
Right.
I want to run for office. How can I learn and what advice do you have for me? People seem to be a lot more receptive to that. Apart from when, maybe the intentions weren't as clear. There are plenty of people who love to help and love to mentor and love to
Right.
help assist the next generation, and they're willing to stick their neck out for you and just impart any information that they can. And I've grown so much from that, and I've learned so much from that, and I've actually gotten to the place where I am now because of that. Whether it's just picking somebody's brain on a
Mhm.
Thursday afternoon for 10 minutes, or having really deep, intense conversations with a mentor or somebody that you don't really agree with.
Right.
I found that that's allowed me to kind of be as objective as possible and make the best decisions in terms of running for office and even wanting to run for office, and get to where I am today. So definitely, that a lot of people talk about transparency and accountability, but there aren't too many people who are actually doing it. So if you can find somebody who's actually doing that and willing to help you,
Mhm.
keep them close.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's great advice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
Isaiah.
Got a question for you about roads, actually, because
It's roads. Gotta love the roads.
you mentioned about roads earlier, and it got my brain box thinking a little bit because I watched a video a little while back, which was very interesting about the state of roads in America and different things like that. And a very interesting line was drawn between a council in a city that they actually had a task force that basically went out whenever there was a pothole reported or the road in disrepair or something like that, and they immediately went out and they fixed these straight away, and they saw a bump in the approval ratings of the council and of the mayor and this sort of thing when those roads started to get looked after in that. So you were talking about roads and that, and I was just wondering, like, what is your kind of way that you take care of roads? Yeah, how do you guys deal with all that sort of thing, and what is the state of your roads, and then planning for the future and stuff with that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, you bring up a great point. Like, you think about roads and you think about potholes, and in your head, you might think it's really trivial, but to the 40,000 other people in your city who don't care about politics, that road that they drive every morning is one of the most important they see. It could be a flat tire that is making them late to work. Can't drop off their. It's so true. So Clermont is interesting because we've grown probably double our size within the last 5 to 6 years. So
Yeah.
the way our infrastructure is, we've got a number of city roads, county roads, and state roads. A lot of the roads that need a lot of the work are usually county and state, but we do have some roads on the city level and municipal level that do need some work. We have great staff at the city of Clermont, so anytime we see those, or if somebody's telling us, we usually can get out there pretty rapidly and get those roads filled out. But they're definitely, the task force is one of those things where it works. It really works. I've seen it happen. A lot of people talk about it, and they, they're kind of like, oh, well, is it the public sector's job to do it, or is it the private sector's job to do it? At the end of the day, people want to drive on roads that that aren't bumpy, aren't spilling their coffee 24/7. So it's a great point you bring up. And our city roads are actually not bad. We're continuing to kind of revamp them. And we've actually been going through a kind of revitalization in terms of our city mantra, essentially, and two, our roads as well. So kind of like a kind of downtown revitalization, because a bustling downtown is kind of where you see most of your economic development, and your citizens' way of life improve.
So you definitely say then that a local government really needs to focus on their roading and taking care of their roads and stuff like that. What about, you said that the county roads and the state roads, so some of them can be in a little bit more of a state of disrepair and that. So obviously they're linking straight into your city and stuff like that. So how do you tackle keeping those in a better shape, and how does that affect your constituents? Like, do they understand that those are outside of your jurisdiction, or how does that all work?
This is a very long-standing battle. Mainly because you have so many people who are like, man, I hate driving on this road. It's so small. There's so much traffic on it. There's so many potholes. I want you to do something. And we're like, well, sir, it's a county road. I can tell our county commissioners and our county government that they need to work on it. But if they're not in any type of rush, they don't have to be. However, we tell our residents and our citizens who come in all the time complaining about it, go to your county commissioner meetings, write them letters, call them, and they'll do something about it. And we've actually seen it recently. We have a road that needs to be expanded here in Clermont. That's a county road, needs to be expanded, needs to be worked on. And it went from a priority level of 5 to a priority level of 1, just because people have done such a great job of annoying the heck out of them in order to get the roads fixed. It's funny, people talk about how there isn't money and funds available, but suddenly there is once you have 100 people in a county room yelling at you, telling them that they would like their roads fixed.
Fix the road.
It's exactly, no, honestly, that's exactly what it is. They talk about how they can't, they're waiting at the stoplight, they're waiting at the turn for 15, 20 minutes, and it's really a mess. But that's the way you have to get it done, honestly. State roads are a little different just because they have a pretty lengthy process of what gets looked at. But there is at least in Florida, there's a long list of road improvements that are on the agenda that they kind of look at to make sure they're taken care of eventually. And if people raise a ruckus about it, then the priority goes up.
Well, I think that's great to know. And that's such an Isaiah question to really get into on roads. Thank you so much for coming on to the Stop Yelling, Start Thinking podcast on my Freedom Is platform. Where can people follow you on social media to keep up with your career and your comments? Yeah, so on LinkedIn, or not LinkedIn, but on Twitter, you can find me at Ebo, EBO _Entsuah, ENTSUAH. And then on LinkedIn, it's the same thing, Ebo Entsuah. And then on Facebook, it's Ebo Entsuah as well. So would love to connect with everybody a little bit more. Always open to any type of discussion, whether it's positive, whether it's negative, because that's how we grow. I try to tell people constructive criticism is where it's at. And, I try to take in as much as possible because I always know that I can better myself. Yeah, definitely. And it's a great medium, Twitter. I actually reached out to you originally through Twitter. So definitely good things can come from it. Thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, no, thank you guys for having me. Really appreciate it. Go listen to their podcast, everybody. It's great. If you don't, get on it. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.